How's it going, my fellow parents? You and I, we have a lot in common, those of us that are listening to this. We care about our family, we care about parenting. We want to be the best parents we can be. And if you're listening to this, one thing that it means we all have in common is that we don't feel like we have all the answers. We're open minded. We want to learn, we want to grow. This is why we're watching videos on social media. This is why we're listening to parenting podcasts. We maybe read books because we're like, I don't have it all figured out. I want to grow. And you know what? This is what we're here about. We want to help you be the best parents you can be and open your mind to the life outside of the closed doors of your house. And on today's episode, we're going to do some storytelling about how other people are parenting their kids. It's going to be really interesting. Some of the stuff you're going to be like, that is great. I want to start doing that. And some of the stuff you're going to hear is like, that is some weird shanky stuff. I'm not doing that. But Jordan, I really kind of like it when I'm on social media, or even better, I'm in someone's house and I'm like learning about parenting. I'm like, I see that, oh, wow, they do things differently here, different culture, different ways. And that's kind of cool. This is like what we're here to learn.
It's cool because you're learning by just observing, right? And I think that's the way a lot of us do this is we observe our parents, we observe our friends, how they do it. I don't know if I've ever seen anybody or if I have ever had the courage to go up to someone and be like, hey, I have a question about your parenting style. Have you ever had someone not on social media, face to face, be like, hey, Sean, whether they know you or not, do you have advice on how to parent X, Y, or Z? Because to me, it's like it's kind of like you're exposing a wound, or you feel naked, right? Because it's like I'm not going to talk about that.
It's vulnerable.
Now, it's vulnerable, but yet we love the content. I take it in. Hearing stories of how people parent is like it's amazing. But for some reason in real life, like I'm not going to ask my friends how they parent that situation. No, right? That's
especially
just weird.
I think you're also talking about men too. Like the idea of a man going up to another man or even a woman saying, hey, can you give me some tips? It's becoming more common now, but you're right. It's very vulnerable and people don't really do it now. Hopefully that's changing. But yeah, good point. We don't ask questions. We don't seek to learn from other people is what you're highlighting.
Now, with my wife, I see it a little differently, which is great. Like, we had twins. We didn't know what the heck we were doing. We were kind of thrown into it. And I'd ask my parents every once in a while. But now that they're older, like we can see some of the things that we messed up on. And, one of my wife's best friends just had another child. And, let's just say, let's bring up the topic of sleeping or sleeping in your own bed, sleeping for 8 hours, kids, right?
Yeah.
And the way they parent the sleep method is like amazing. It wasn't like a fluke, like it just works for this one kid and they go to bed by themselves and they sleep all night. They never get up and come into your bed. Yes. And then she had another kid and it's the same story. And so we're learning it that we're like, man, that style of parenting is literally working. And I would totally adopt that if I had a new kid.
Love it, man. This is why we did today's episode. We want to expose you to some new ideas and new things. I heard something even just recently. Somebody said this: parenting is done privately and judged publicly.
Oh, isn't that the truth?
That is the truth right there. But this is why we're trying to do this podcast. We're trying to not make it so private, right? We want to expose you to new tools, new ideas. I remember years ago, I was in the pits, man. I was in a really tough spot in my marriage and my parenting. And I went to my friend's house and I just saw so much love in their house and joy. And I saw silliness and laughter. And I said, what is going on in my house? I want more of this in my house. And I remember even another story that just pops up. I went to a client's house, this wonderful Black woman who was single mom raising 2 great kids. And she was talking about how she really wants her kids to do daily chores. And I was like, what? Daily chores? Like, that seems a little intense. But I learned so much from her. I learned about the beauty of daily chores. And like, this is like, it would be so wrong and egotistical for us to be like, you know what, I'm like, my parents raised me. I know all the answers. Like, let's open our minds. And so that's what we're going to do here today. So Jordan, I got some stats for us to open us up with. Okay.
We love stats, man. We love to hear what's going on in the world.
If you're listening, here's how the flow of today's episode is going to go is we're going to tell you 12 quick short stories about how they're little short stories about how different countries and different cultures parent their kids. But before we get to these 12, I have a couple stats and kind of nerdy, cool things that I found online that I want to share with you. Is that cool?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, the first one is very intense. Instead of me just telling you what it is, I'm going to give you a quiz on the spot. Okay, ready?
I feel like
So,
every time I'm coming to class, I'm like underprepared. I'm like, gosh,
well,
dang it, another quiz.
I know I say this to you all the time. I put you on the spot. All right, that's how we like to do it here. Okay, ready? Okay, so as as you can imagine, um, years ago, more children were raised in two-parent households all around the world. Makes sense, right, Jordan? That
Yes.
number is growing in all around the world. I'm sorry, it's actually shrinking and
Declining. Right.
declining, and single-parent households are growing. So I know it's a sensitive question. It's going to kind of put you on the spot to talk about different cultures, countries. And so I'm going to ask you, where would you say would be the countries that have the top single parent households in the world? Pew Research did a
Oh,
study of
wow.
130 countries and territories, and they told us what the top 5 are. And you might be very interested to hear. Jordan, what do you think they are?
So my first mindset goes to my personal experience. I remember one time my wife and I we went to Belize, right? Beautiful country, Central
I heard it's
America.
so
Um,
pretty there.
so pretty, right? And I remember we took one of these old school buses, right? It was like $13 to go across the whole country. We were right by Guatemala, and we were riding with all the the townspeople. It was amazing.
Oh my
And
gosh.
and so we
Yeah.
get to this little house in the woods. This family lives on acreage, and
Ooh,
their daughter goes to private school and all
so
this.
pretty, probably.
And I remember her saying one time they were talking about their family, and she was like, "Yeah, the motto here in Belize is for the men to spread their sperm." And I was like, "Well, what do you mean?" She's like, "Well, there's
Spread
not a
their
lot of like
sperm.
dads that stick around. They
Oh my,
just spread their
that's what they
sperm, and so there's a
said.
lot." That's what she said, and I'm like,
That's what she
"Oh
said.
wow!" So she goes finding a married
Spread their
couple.
sperm, or is it like
Yeah, no, yeah,
spread their?
spread their seed. Sorry, spread their seed.
Oh, spread their seed. Yeah, that doesn't
Right?
sound too catchy. Spread your seed sounds a little
Yeah,
catchier.
spread
No.
your seed. And I was like, and so then you ask that question. I'm like, man, maybe it's somewhere in Central America. And then I think about it deeper. I'm like, yeah, but
Mm.
it's got to be a country that maybe doesn't have a faith based background. Because if you have like a
Oh.
Catholic or Christian based background, you know the stories of the Bible and what
Oh yeah.
you should and how you should and shouldn't live.
Oh,
So now I'm thinking
interesting.
like,
God, love
which
how you're
countries are
processing
falling
this.
away? I know which
Yes.
countries are falling away from that idea of religion and having a husband and a wife. And now I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, shoot, man, and with religion going down, maybe it is one of these more popular countries like America or
Hmm.
or somewhere in Europe or something like that. I could go back to like third world countries, would it be somewhere in Africa? But I'm gonna
All
stick
right.
with Belize or maybe somewhere in the US since our divorce rate continues to climb. What do you got for me? What does Pew
I
Research
got some
say?
stats for you. Okay. Oh, I think I might be reading this article wrong. So I don't know if I have the top 5 highest percentages, but I do. I do have some stats. Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Ready? In China, only 3% of children grow up in single parent households.
Okay.
That's
I was
very
gonna
low.
go kind of China, but I didn't think. I
That's
mean, they've got the
low.
highest population, but that's extremely low. 3% of the whole
Extremely low.
country.
I mean, we're thinking like even like people die. So like, right,
Right.
that would be if you just take death into it, you're looking at maybe 3%. It makes you wonder, does anyone get divorced or leave their spouse in China? Because you maybe think 3% of parents die. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Nigeria, what's your guess? Higher or lower? Only 4% in Nigeria.
Only 4% of Nigerians get divorced. That's what this is
No,
telling us.
4%. In comparison, only 4% of Nigerian children grow up in single family households.
Oh, that
India,
is so
only
low.
5%. Let's go with the number one country in the whole
Now, I wonder
world.
if this is taking into consideration two families living together, right? So now we have to think about this. Isn't just like a
Mm.
husband and wife with your
Oh,
family.
good
This is like
point.
living with grandma and
You're
grandpa
right.
and
It
uncle
is. It
and uncle.
is. It's a
Yes,
single parent.
this
No, it
makes
says
sense.
single parent. No, single parent. Let's go with the number one country in the entire world. Almost 1/4 of U.S. children under the age of 18 live with one parent or no other adults.
So that would be the top of the chart then. US.
23%.
That is so sad. We live in a country that
With
has
1/4
23%
children have
with the one parent in
one
the
parent in the
household.
house. This is quote from Pew Research article I'm looking at right now. More than 3 times the share of children around the world who do so. Average is 7%. USA, 23%. Canada, 15%. And that's interesting you brought up religion.
Right.
You didn't talk about Islam. You talked about Christian or Judeo-Christian. Well, check this out. Quote, the study, which analyzed people's living arrangements differ by religion, also found that U.S. children from Christian and religious unaffiliated homes are equally likely to live in this type of arrangement. So religion in America does not make a difference.
Wow,
so let's simmer on this before we
shocking
move
and that's
on.
sad, and
It's shocking
that
and
does
it's
not make me
sad.
feel good.
So on one hand, here's what I want to do. That means potentially 23% to 50% of people listening to this right now are raising their children in a single parent household, right?
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense. So on one hand, here's what I don't want to do. I am not about to bring any shame or negativity to you right now. We are on your team. We love you. So how do we send a message to you right now that there's no shame in this? But also, Jordan, how do we send this other message? We need to do better. We need to do better. We need to do better for our kids to help them being raised in 2-parent households. Right?
Well, I don't think you could ever shame the individual because everybody's story is going to be different. But what you can do is shame the country. You could shame society and what society thinks is okay and what's not okay. We praise a society that tells you to swipe right or go on a date, go to the next person and try to find someone. If it doesn't work out, if you have a fight, move on instead of working through it.
Right.
So where we live, it's not like accountability. I met a lady at the ring shop years ago when I was buying my wife another ring for, it was like an anniversary.
Yeah,
and
sure.
She was from, I want to say it was India. And she said she grew up in an arranged marriage. Like her family said, this is who you're going to marry.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh, I am loving hearing this. I don't know anybody who's gone through this. Do you like your husband? She's like, yeah, he's my best friend in the world.
Oh,
I'm like, did you know him before? She's like, no, I never knew him. But she goes, I have my family backing this marriage. I have his family backing this marriage. So it's like, we both have to make this work so that we don't disappoint our families and we make sure that everything is thriving.
Right. So on one hand,
oh my gosh.
Right. It's like on one hand, you're hearing that and you're like, wow, it's family. It's family support. It's family commitment. It's family community. That's what you hear positive. If you wanted to, you could also hear the other hand. Like, are they staying in this for the family? Are they ashamed of divorce?
No, because she said she loved him.
She loves
we had so much fun together.
You may not know this, Jordan, but there is a lot of Indian American people here in America who have been married still to this day because of arranged marriages. It's a huge thing.
And we look at it like it's so weird.
And they come here because they have high level jobs in tech or in the marketplace. And I know these people because they live near Silicon Valley in the East, in the Bay Area. There's a lot of tech and computer jobs, and they're highly skilled. And a lot of them are very happy and healthy, and they're making it work. Right. This is not like a new fad.
Right.
Yeah.
And you could have some people yelling and be like, "Yeah, well, are they faithful?" and all this. And I don't know. Okay, so
I don't know either. No
know.
Judgments.
It doesn't matter. We're not talking about that. Like ultimately, yes, we hope that everyone stays faithful. But the idea of like having a 2-parent household is so important. I think that's what you're getting at.
I think it's about this. Is I just think it's fair to say this. What do you need to do? What do your spouse need to do to stay happily married? To do the hard work, go to therapy, go to counseling, listen to podcasts, to
not
figure
have
this
kids.
out.
Don't have kids.
Yeah, don't have kids. Before we get to the 12 different things that we're going to share, here's a couple more things. Here's a really cool article I found out of Thoreau University. Shout out to Vallejo, California. It says this: parenting around the world, child rearing practices in different cultures. And here's a couple things that I found really different. Okay, here's a couple of things. First off, we won't get into this right now. I'm just going to read. Here's a couple of things that we're going to get to. Right. Norwegian parents let their sleep in freezing cold. NPR reports. The French don't cater to fussy eaters. Instead, they serve children the same meals they eat themselves. In the Polynesian Islands, listen to this, it's not uncommon for older children, think toddler and preschool age. That's what it says. To take care of younger ones.
Toddler, preschool age? Wow, that's good.
Right, that's what it says. Even those who are not their siblings. How about Argentina? Argentine parents let their kids stay up until all hours. I'll tell you why later. That's interesting. Japanese
Okay.
parents let 7-year-olds ride the subways by themselves, and Danish parents leave their kids sleeping in a stroller on the curb while they go inside to shop and eat.
I was gonna
What
bring that up. I've actually encountered that when I
you
was in
have?
Scandinavia. Yes, I'm like, what is this like? What is this stroller doing out here? Oh, there's a baby in there. Someone left their baby
Yeah.
outside. Yeah, that's a normal,
Yes.
common practice. They
Here's
leave it
here's
out there while they go inside.
if there's one thing I want to hit on this article, because it's very hard to read. It's very like somebody really smart wrote this, smarter than me. Here's what I want to hit on, and I want to get your take on this. Okay, the one of the biggest finds of this article found, the researchers found, this should make sense to all of us. And as you listen to my words, I want you to nod your head in agreement, because I know you're going to be agreeing to it. But I want us all to second guess this. And I want us all to doubt what you're about to hear. I think it'd be good for us to have a
Okay.
critical mind on what we're about to hear about American culture. Notable cultural differences in parenting, the individual versus the collective. Right? Are you ready to pick this apart?
Sure.
Now, this is talking about how we here in America, we very much value the individual. Here's a couple quotes from the article. In study after study, cultural anthropologists have found that the overriding goal of American parents is to make a child independent and self-reliant. Carteret says, babies are bundles of potential, and a good parent is one who can uncover the latent abilities and talents of their child, encourage the good while discouraging the bad. Right. And it
Okay.
goes
So yeah,
on to
we
continue to
would nod our
talk
head and
about
be like, yeah,
how
of course.
we are all about, makes sense, right?
Yeah, we're trying to get our kids to be truly independent.
Why? Why do we do that? Why
Yeah. Okay.
do
So
we
let's
do that
break
more
this
than
down.
everyone else? Why do we always about, you got to go to college, you got to get a job, you got to buy a house, you got to be on your own, you got to get married, you got to figure out, you got to pay bills, you got to pay taxes. You can't be coming home. You can't be living here. You got to be doing this. I'm going to take care of you. Well,
Right.
you got to take care of yourself. You're 20. You want me to help you with that? You're 20. You're
Right.
16. What are you doing? You're 16. Figure it out. Go drive. Get out of here. Why do we think this way? Is this the right way to think? I don't know the answer. I'm just thinking we should really question the mentality.
I mean, there's something to be said about like becoming a man, right? We talk
Mm-hmm.
about, you know, these events that can help leap you into adulthood, and part of that is to like stand up for yourself and not have anybody give you anything. So right? So
Mm-hmm.
there's this idea like, hey, you're a man now, like you go
Right.
find your way.
Right.
And I think that is multicultural. If you know, you think about different communities doing different things
I don't know if
to
it is.
establish that.
I
I
don't.
know, I
Yeah,
know.
I don't know if I don't live anywhere else, so I don't know if it is. I think maybe it. What if it isn't? What
I
if it
mean,
isn't?
what's the podcast we just did where you do something to like commemorate becoming a woman or a
Oh,
man?
rites of
Rites of
passage.
passage. So like I'm thinking of like that rites of passage. But
Right.
you're saying take it a step further. That's not saying go get a job and never come back. That's just
Mm-hmm.
saying you are now an adult and can take care of yourselves, basically.
I
But for
mean,
us,
so
but for us,
yeah.
it's like get out of my house. I've raised you 18 years. I don't
Right.
want to have to raise you anymore.
Also, keep in mind we're two, white men and raised in a white culture, and it's very different. Like we know that in many other cultures, it's like the they feel like it's my responsibility to take care of my kids until they're 18. And then it's my responsibility to take care of my parents when they reach
Right.
60. And that's not how I think. And that's not probably how you think either. Like, do you feel like it's your responsibility to take care of your parents
When they get
at age
older,
60, 70, 80,
I mean, I feel like as they get older, it's up
90?
to us kids to make sure they're taken care of. I'm not going to dump them off into some community home, right? Is that what you're
Well,
asking?
I don't know. See, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, I want to make sure they're taken care of. I mean, they took care of me. Why would I not want to take care of them when they get to an age where it's harder to be taken care of?
What if you don't like your parents? What if you don't want to take care of them? What if
Well,
you're like,
yeah,
hey, you got to take care of your own? You got to save up
right. A
your
lot
own
of
money.
people butt heads with their
Are
parents. So
you
they
going to
just say,
spend?
you got to live somewhere else.
You don't have to answer this question. Let's say you saved a lot of money. Let's say you saved $200,000, and you're 60 years old, and you're thinking about retiring. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and you have $200,000 saved in assets or whatever, and your parent is now 80, 85. and they have very little money. You don't answer this question. It's a rhetorical question. Are you going to take half of that money and take care of your parents? Are you going to take a third of the money? Are you going to take all the money? Or what if you don't have a house to bring them into? Like, see, it's just a rhetorical, like, this is, I think if you ask
It goes
10
to your
people,
values, though.
it
Like,
does.
what
It
are
goes
our
to your
values?
tradition.
That's what you're asking. What are our values as Americans? And the culture here is consume, consume, consume. You get old enough, you get a
Independence.
job, you buy a house,
Save for
you
retirement.
consume. You save for retirement,
So that no one
right?
has to take care of you. Yeah.
So no one has to take care of you.
I just
But
think, I know for me, one thing I've learned, let me just say this. I'm going to be like, I'm not racist. But I feel like because I'm white, I can bash on my own race, right? That's a good thing. I feel like most cultures are doing better of thinking about these things than my white American Swedish culture that I was raised in personally. I'm only talking about one person here, me. I do
sure.
not like the way that I have been raised when it comes to thinking about family, grandparents, taking care of older people. I think I have a lot to learn from other cultures.
Well, I mean, the great thing about being in America is we're a blend of so many cultures, and so we don't have to go far to learn because it's right here.
Oh,
We just have to be open to like learning
yeah.
about those cultures.
Well, here, let's learn from the Chinese. Here's a quote. Children raised with Chinese values are installed with an obvious and accepted duty towards their family. We've been told here in America that this could be bad, right? Americans, for some reason, are saying negative stuff about the Chinese. Some people love this. Some people say negative things about this. Of course, it's not black and white. You make up your own decision on this quote. As part of their child raising technique, Chinese parents are also expected to teach their children the specific practice of how to live harmoniously with others. Therefore, individual emotion expression is considered harmful as it is a threat to maintaining harmony. This in turn creates a culture of saving face, which leads to shame on the child if society's expectations for the property or propriety are breached. What do you think about that?
I mean, there's a lot about mindfulness, about where you put yourself in this world or in this universe, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes America, we have this tendency of thinking like we're the best. It's everything. It doesn't matter. We're
Yeah.
number one. But the reality is like when you look up at the stars at night, we are this little tiny speck in this much larger spinning
good.
galaxy, right?
That's good.
And then you got to think like I'm just a little tiny piece of sand in this cog, and I just ultimately want to make it all work together. So I like that practice because it makes it to where you're adaptable. You're a chameleon. You can help others.
If you were raised the way I am, or if you struggle with thinking the way I think I struggle with thinking, is highlighting the individual over the family. Staying in, because I'm going to tell you a story later on about what happened to me last night. I'm going to tell you a cute story because I'm reading my 7-year-old child, a story last night. And I'm going to read you parts of the story because I think it really changed my thinking about parenting. And this is what we're talking about. This story that I read exposed me to another family's culture, and it changed me. And I want these stories that we're about to tell you to change you. So, Jordan, let's go and do what we plan on doing. Let's talk about these different cultures and different countries. They do a little bit things different down in Sweden, and then I'll tell you about what they do in Finland. So
it was great. I mean, I was just in Scandinavia, so I got to check out what few people did in Finland and Norway. Never got to hop over to Sweden, but in Sweden, the kids have say-so. So the mother isn't always, here all the time, right? So families are considered very egalitarian with parents and kids having equal rights. So instead of just mom and dad ruling the roost and, hey, we're calling the shots, this is our rule, children are actually the ones expected to encourage to share their opinions and help make family decisions. How cool is that?
I think it really sounds really great. It actually sounds like what I'm trying to raise my kids in. It's like they're not the leaders here, but they have a say. I want to get their opinion, but I had to train my mind into thinking this way. It sounds like there in Sweden, it's just the way they think. It's just you don't have to work hard to be like, when you think 7-year-old child, what do you think we should do here? It's a tool I talk about on this podcast a lot, and I do with my clients.
All the time.
It's called shared problem solving. It's inviting them into the chaos, into the confusion. And in Sweden, they have a say. That sounds really interesting and really healthy.
And I love the fact that you've already been teaching on this and you haven't even been to Sweden.
Well, I think there you go. I told you I come from a Swedish Irish background. Yeah, my full name is Sean
It's
Patrick Donohue.
ingrained in your
So
DNA.
yeah, it is. Well, here's what we're reading from too. If you're looking for this, you can find this article on Yahoo, an article by Cecilia Schatzman entitled "America Parents Differently Than Other Countries. Should we shift our priorities?" Well, here's a little thing on a little quote on Finland. I'll read it to y'all. In Finland, school days are short and varied. Let me explain.
I was just talking to my wife about this today. That is so funny. Yes, please continue.
Oh, no way. Universal
Oh, yeah.
pre-K has been a hot topic at home, but in Finland, kids don't begin formal schooling until they're 7 years old. School days are much shorter too, sometimes as little as 4 hours. Plus, students get plenty of breaks, even 45 minutes breaks for outdoor time. Also, it's not just reading, writing, and arithmetic. There's a wide range of electives and classes which emphasize the arts, music, life skills, home economics. The result, Finland has what's widely considered one of the best educations in the world. Now I'm just pissed.
And I can contest
I'm
to this.
pissed.
Whenever we do, like, we have a climate change type show on the Weather Channel that I help host. And we basically talk a lot about like some of the big technologies coming out in the green space, right? Like who's building solar, who's doing wind. Finland is in the headlines all the time when it comes to green energy. They are doing a lot, which is pretty cool up there. But I mean,
cool. Keep it up, Finnish people.
I was just talking to Danny about this because our school can be so rigorous, and ideally we were just talking to how nice it would be if like you had like a couple days on and a couple days off. And you know how they have a saying where it's like, it's not about how much you make, it's about what you do with your money.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
It's not about how many friends you have, it's about the quality ones, right? So it's school's the same thing. It's like you just go to school to learn nonsense, and what's the point? But if you go to school to actually learn the good stuff in the short period, I feel the same with work. We don't need 5 days, 40-hour work weeks. That's ridiculous. Most of the time we're on social media anyway. Like, come on.
Oh, buddy. Yeah, dude. Yes. It's like, let's open our minds. It doesn't have to be the way it is. And I don't think I'll ever run for politics. I might.
Yeah,
I don't think I'll ever open a school, even though I think I probably will one day. I feel like it's in my future to be a part of opening a creative school. But when I do, if I have an ability to open a really creative school, it's gonna be different than how we do things here.
It's gonna be different.
And I want my book, which if it ever does come out, it's called "Schools Won't Teach This: A Parent's How-To Guide to Raising Wise, Emotionally Intelligent Adults." I've been working on it for 4 years. I want that book to change the world. And I want that book to be incorporated into our school systems about how we can better teach kids EQ skills. But, oh my gosh, I'm a little upset.
Yeah, you better get into politics if you want your books in schools, man.
It's gonna take somebody even higher than the school superintendents to change the school curriculums. This is why charter schools and private schools are trying to, but even them are having a hard time. Let's talk about Mexico. I like this one a lot.
We know Scandinavia does some pretty good stuff. All right, so in Mexico,
some people are not going to like this, and that's okay. That's your free choice.
That's okay. This is what they do.
There's so many good things that come out of Latin American culture, Latino culture, Mexican culture. I love going down to Mexico. Jordan and I grew up in San Diego. I love Mexican culture. We go down there all the food,
time. Ensenada,
so much
Tijuana,
good stuff in their family.
Rosarito.
Oh my gosh! In Mexico, a parent gets a grade. It does,
right? So it's like you're literally judging a book by its cover. It's like, how do you look?
They are.
It's true.
The kids, you might be hard pressed to find unruly looking little ones south of the border. Grooming is taken seriously in Mexico, so much that if students show up to school looking unkempt, if their hair isn't combed or doesn't have enough styling product to look neat, they'll be sent home from school with a note from their parents. Essentially, they're graded on their unkempt, on upkeep too. Report cards include marks specifically for personal hygiene. I like this. This
kind of goes into the category of like what private schools will do, where you have a uniform. When we were kids, we would knock that all the time. That's school. You got to wear a uniform. How dorky is that? But now that I'm an adult, I'm like, it's so much better. Like, I remember going to school and people's outfits, you had to just figure out what to do to fit in. And it was literally taking away from like trying to actually learn. So
Yeah.
I think this is great. It
Me
puts you on an
too.
even
Me
playing field.
too.
Everyone looks good, and
Yep.
you can just not worry about the nonsense.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I get it. If I'm in high school, what kids wear nowadays, they wear their pajama pants, they wear these
Right.
hoodies, and they bring a
Right.
blanket over their hoods. It's like a
I've
cultural
seen
norm
that.
now, right? You see
I've
it
seen that.
everywhere. And I
Yeah.
get it. They want to be comfy, but what they're doing, sending a message here in Mexico, is like, look, this is a place of work. You come
Right.
here and you better show up. Let's talk about Denmark. Yeah, it's
So
so cool. You're such a world traveler now. You like know a lot
I've
about
been to
these
like three
countries.
places. I just happen to be to three cool places.
It sounds like
In Denmark, I didn't get to go to Denmark, but this is what we were alluding to earlier, where babies are okay by
this
themselves.
is
Now,
nuts.
this in America would probably earn you a visit from Child Protective Services, which is sad.
CPS.
Which is sad. All right,
And a lot of
CPS comes
angry
knocking on your
parents be
door,
raging. I
right?
might even do it. I'd get weird on you if
Right?
you leave your baby by yourself. Like, what the hell's
Right? Or
wrong with you?
think about the big problems we have here of leaving babies in vehicles and them dying, right? I
Mm,
mean, they don't have that as much in Denmark because they don't have the heat we have.
yeah.
But this is like just leaving your kids outside. So common
Okay.
practice for Danish parents: park their children in strollers on the sidewalk, babies in the stroller, they're asleep, and then the parents go inside to a restaurant. They'll dine, maybe be there for an hour. They'll have
Mhm.
dinner. So, quick story: we were in Norway. Our child was in a little stroller. He fell asleep. There was a kid outside in their stroller, but I didn't feel comfortable with that. I brought the kid in the restaurant, and they looked at me like I was so weird. But
Oh
I
my
felt so
gosh.
awkward
Oh my
leaving my child
gosh.
outside, and that's a
Right.
cultural difference, right? Isn't that crazy?
Gosh, you know what? It just speaks to what's happened to our country. We're just either really, 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 really bad things are happening to our kids all the time, or we're scared. We are a
And
generation of
let me make
scared
sure I preface
parents.
this first, or not preface
Yeah.
this, but kind of top it with this. The
Hmm.
reason they do that is because they have a big belief that it is very important for their kids to get fresh air, which I
Mm,
100% agree with.
interesting.
Here, my kids don't even get to go and do their
Wow.
little playground playtime if it's below
Wow.
a certain temperature or above a certain
Oh
temperature.
my
Like, get those kids
gosh.
outside.
Wow, that's so yeah, and they just feel safe. They feel safe with the Danish. They feel safe putting their babies and their kids around other people. We don't
Hmm.
feel safe. We don't feel safe
Right.
with our most treasured people putting our babies in the hands of strangers. Jordan, tell us about Korea. Now, Korea
All right.
is a very similar country to the USA. I mean, they have, I don't know if this would be a fact, but based on what I know about Korea, if there's one country in the world that's actually very similar to American ideology and thinking, it's Koreans.
And
But maybe
they
I'm
love
wrong.
the American culture. They love
Oh
American
no, I
culture.
love the Korean culture. Oh my gosh,
I
Korean
know, me too.
food, Korean people, Korean
So,
Korean comedies now. Like,
yeah.
okay,
How about K-pop? You like K-pop?
K-pop, yeah.
K-pop, man, that's the
Yeah, I'd
jam.
love okay, yeah, I would love to go to Korea one
So,
day.
so with them, it has to do with the food, right? They don't give you a kids menu. Think about you come
What?
here, they'll give you a kids menu and they give you an adult
Yeah.
menu, right?
Yeah,
So
they get
for
the
these,
same crap on the kids menu, tater tots, or I love tots, so I'm not
yeah,
bashing. I'll never bash at tots.
no, you can't.
Tots are the best. The chicken nuggets. Please continue.
So here, in America, we've got to make sure we got the right snacks on hand when kids get hungry. Here's snacks. Here you go. In Korea, it's like, no, 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 no.
Mhm.
There's no such thing as like nibbling throughout the day.
Okay.
It's the pantry's closed, the fridge is closed, and then it's time to eat. And the parents take their kids to
Yeah.
eat, and they eat seriously. Lesson number one:
Yeah.
fighting hunger until it's time for the family to get together. That way, they're very hungry, and they'll
Mm,
actually eat the food in front of them.
mm,
And there
makes
is no
sense.
adult or kids menu. Korean children eat the same meals as adults, and that
Gosh,
helps them get on the same palate as us. I can't tell you how sick
that
I am of making
makes
macaroni and
total
cheese and chicken
sense.
nuggets.
It does not just make sense,
Yeah.
right? It's like what we do as America, and we actually do this. Yeah, we don't make special meals for our kids. My wife makes some very creative meals, like lots of veggies, vegan type meals, and yeah, we force our kids to eat it, and it's hard. It's hard. It'd be much easier just to give them crap or to give them noodles or to give them. And she says, "No, this is your dinner. You're going to go to bed hungry." And then they
Then they eat. No, that's the way
imagine
they
the
do it.
faces. They're sitting here like it's torture, putting
Right.
squash in their mouth,
Oh,
mushrooms.
yeah,
It's
that's all
like,
right.
and
Builds
their
character. Just tell them
palate
it builds
adjusts.
character.
Their
Yeah.
palates adjust. And yeah, of
Dude,
course, we're not these crazy parents. We'll be like, no, you got to take 4 bites of this, and then we'll give you something else. But yeah, we've done this.
I
Danielle's
mean, we
such a
did that
great
with our
mom.
kids, and my daughter, she had elk and deer steak, and she loved it. She
Ooh.
loved it at like
Yeah.
age 3 and 4. She's
Yeah.
like, I love the deer steak. Now she
Yeah.
won't touch it, and I'm like, gosh
She
darn
won't
it,
touch
I was
it.
so good
Oh,
originally, and
dude.
then I became
Yeah.
soft.
Yeah. Let me tell you something. I have very unique beer. I would like to tell you about. We talk about Chile, the country of Chile. Before we do,
Right.
I want to tell you that I feel like I have very unique beliefs about black bears, and I'd like to tell you about them.
Oh, jeez. Okay, go
I
for it.
love black bears.
Me
I love
too.
bears.
I feel like they're big dogs.
We have a ton of bears here in California.
Yeah, because you're not allowed to
Most
hunt
people
them.
don't see bears, and we're not around bears. Only around like Lake Tahoe area or Yosemite would you be around bears.
Right.
Okay, now most people are afraid of bears, Jordan.
Right. Brown bears, that's okay. Polar bears, yes, be afraid of all of those. Black bears,
Grizzly bears, be
just-
afraid of grizzlies.
yes.
But here on the West Coast, you may not know this, and you can tease me if you don't. It sounds like Jordan are on the same page. You should not be afraid of black bears. That's
Now,
my opinion.
Okay, let me say this. You need to respect black bears.
Of course.
You need to not taunt a mother bear with her
No.
3
Don't
cubs.
Yes.
Okay,
Do not-
don't be silly. All right,
Don't be silly.
Sean's right.
But
They've
if you
got,
see a black bear, you should be like, wow, that's beautiful. That's a bear. That's the
Right.
cubs. This is amazing. I live in the West Coast. I get to see bears and not be afraid of them. Guys, black bears are different than grizzly bears. And
100%.
I said I get roasted by my friends and family because I say that black bears are kind of like dogs. And you just said
I
it.
say that.
You
I say
just
that.
said it.
I've
So I'm on a
Okay, they have a
platform
saying.
to preach to the whole world. Everybody, stop talking crap about black bears. You don't need to be afraid of them. You don't need to feel like you're going to eat your children. I think they're vegetarians, aren't they?
No, they're omnivores. They'll eat
they are.
anything. All right.
Okay,
So here's
okay,
the thing:
sorry.
brown bears and grizzly bears are basically kind of like the same type breed. All right. So you talk about brown bears, that's like grizzly. So they
Okay.
have a saying. Okay, if it's black, fight back. Okay, so let's just say you get an altercation. The black
With
bear,
a black
you can
bear,
actually
which
spook.
is so
You can
rare,
spook.
you guys. A
It's
black
rare,
bear
but you can
being
scare
attacked
it.
by a
You
black
can
bear.
get big, right?
They're
say,
afraid
"Get
of
big."
people. They're
Right.
afraid of
Ah!
people. Yeah.
They will run away. If
Girl-
it's brown, lay down, act dead. You're not going to outrun a brown
Okay.
bear. You're
Yeah.
not going to fight a brown bear. You'll tear
Okay.
you to shreds.
If it's
And then
brown,
if it's a
lay
polar
down.
bear, you're screwed either way.
You're
They'll
done.
eat anything.
You're done.
They'll attack
You're
you.
done. Here's my take
You're
about
screwed.
parenting. Thank you. I'm glad we're on the same page, everybody.
Oh
You
my
come to
gosh, that's so
California and you go to Lake Tahoe or Yosemite, don't be afraid of bears. Just enjoy it. Take a picture.
Respect
Don't
them.
get close.
Yeah,
All right, now
good
here's
call.
the thing. For some reason, we've been told here 2 things. We've been told, one, that you should be afraid of black bears. And we've also been told that you should never, ever take candy from strangers. But Jordan, have you ever heard of anybody poisoning a child with candy?
No, I mean, wasn't that a thing back in like the 80s? Because when I was a
No,
kid,
it's still
was
going
it-
on.
I know, but was there actually like a candy, killer
No.
out there? Was there ever a story
don't
like a
think
Zodiac
so.
killer?
Yeah,
was
maybe if I'm
Ted
wrong.
Bundy? Was Ted
Right.
Bundy lacing
No.
candy with anything?
No,
Did that ever happen?
Fun fact, my mom went to high school and college with Ted Bundy, and
Oh
he
my
murdered
gosh.
women, good-looking women with brown hair. And my mother was a good-looking woman with brown hair, and he never murdered her. But that's a fun fact. They actually share a high school and college yearbook together. That's about
That's
Ted
so
Bundy.
crazy.
Going back
That's
to
so
this,
crazy.
in Chile, candy from strangers is fine. From a young age, American kids are taught to never take candy or anything else from strangers.
Right.
But in Chile, giving sweets to children is a sign of affection. And if a parent refuses candy offered by strangers on the street, they will be chided by onlookers for depriving kids. Well, there's something I like about this, and there's something I don't like. What's your take?
What do you like about it? Give me both.
It's like, just chill the hell out, man. Like, people aren't trying to poison your kid. People love kids. 99.99% of people are normal, and they're not trying to hurt your child.
Okay.
That's what I like about this.
That's what you like.
Chileans.
What do you
Chileans,
not
it's like,
like
hey,
about
we're all
it?
Chileans. We love each other. We care about children here in this country. We're not trying to poison children. That's what I like.
Maybe give them an apple and not a candy.
That's what I don't like.
That's
Right.
okay.
That's what I don't
Yeah.
like. Yeah, no,
Give 'em
I'm
sugar,
sorry.
all
But
hyped
if
up.
anybody, including their own family members, are trying to give my kids candy, Danielle are like, nope, no candy.
Yeah.
No candy, no soda.
And nowadays, you can't even go going trick or treating door to door. It still happens, but it's more becoming like, well, you can't do that. You need to go to like a parking lot and do trunk or treat just so you know. You know what I mean? It's like,
dude,
come
I know.
on.
Hey, this
All right.
one's
Well,
really, really interesting. I can't wait to hear what you tell us
this
about
one's in
England.
England.
This
So
is pretty
anybody
different than
listening,
America here. This is different than America. Listen what the English do.
if you're in England, do you brag on your kids?
Hmm.
Let me ask you this. If you're not in England, let's say anybody listening, do you brag on your kids?
Well, yeah,
Because,
we
right?
do. Here in America,
Yeah.
we always be bragging on our kids.
Right.
It's like
My
what we
kid just
do.
hit a
No big
grand
deal.
slam. He's the
Yeah,
best
grand
football
slam,
player
A
out there.
straight
He just got
A's.
triple A's or straight
Or
A's.
we send these Christmas newsletters too, which I've always enjoyed reading.
We do.
About, hey, here's
This
what
is
we're
how
doing.
great we're
This is what this
doing.
kid's doing. This is what I like
Yeah.
that reading those things. But
I do
tell us,
too.
but in England, they don't do
It's
this.
not good. All right.
Okay.
From posting about winning science projects to gushing about soccer trophies, Americans,
Wow.
yes, us, we are known for boasting about our kids. But in the UK, this behavior is looked down upon. Don't brag.
Wow.
They can't even talk to about their children's accomplishments. The same goes for kids tooting their own horns.
Tooting
Instead,
their own
parents
horns.
often make depreciating comments in front of their kids to teach them to be
Oh, that's messed
humble.
up. They don't build them up, they tear them down.
And meanwhile, we're like, give everybody a trophy. You're amazing.
Mhm. The English are like, yeah, you suck today. Yeah, this kid sucked. This kid sucked on the soccer field. Yeah, Dad, I know. I know, Dad.
Let's go to the local watering hole and have a pint.
Do you have an English accent? Can you say that in English accent?
No, I cannot. I'm terrible at accents.
All my accents, they kind of sound Russian for some reason. Let me try right here. Okay. I can actually do it. It takes me like 5 minutes to get into an accent. Let's go to the watering. Let's go to the, hey, Sonny, let's go to the local watering hole and get a pint. I don't know. See, there's a little Russian in there.
Oh, that was almost more like pirate.
I know. That's pirate. It's because I'm an English pirate. Okay.
It's because you're an English pirate.
Now, the Polynesian islands. Oh, the beauty, the tattoos, the big families, the functions. I'll tell you right now.
Think Moana.
Polynesian barbecue. I mean, you're talking 50 people there. Great food.
Dancing.
Probably amazing macaroni
Fire
salad.
breathing.
Music. People are wearing sandals, hugs, kisses, aunts, uncles, great aunts. Who wouldn't want to go to a Polynesian family? Can you just adopt me and my family into your family right now?
Let's just go over there, hang out, and then never come back.
You don't gotta go. They have them here in America. You got big Polynesian families, and they got their tattoos. So nice. Babysitting starts a little earlier in those families than here, from other cultures. It starts. Adults are in charge of caring infants. Okay, that's good. But as soon as children are able to walk, other kids quickly become responsible for their siblings and neighbors.
That's what I'm talking about.
As a result, toddlers in Polynesian islands are much more independent than their stateside counterparts, knowing that it's the only way they can spend time with older kids. Interesting, huh?
I love that. Go check on your neighbor. I remember when I was living in apartments, I had a really cool friendship with a doctor who lived upstairs was with us. We were in Las Vegas at the time, and I'd go up, and he was married, and I'd knock on the door and hang out with them, and that was so cool. But nowadays, we're in these apartment complexes, and you don't even know your neighbor. Like, you live 3 feet from that person, you don't know who they are.
You don't even know your neighbor.
You don't even know your neighbor.
Dude, I think across the street, this is so sad. Across the street, I believe there's a teenage girl that lives there. I've never seen her. I think there's a teenage girl that lives across the street. I've never seen her once.
Why do you think she lives there? I mean,
because I've met their parents. I met her parents.
And
I met her mom. And I believe she told me I have a teenage daughter. And I said, yeah, let's get our daughters together. I've never seen her once. Part of the problem of living in America is that. And you know what else sucks about America? Is garages.
Storage units.
No, think about this. Garages.
I thought you meant like because we collect so much stuff.
No, hear me out. If you park your car in the garage, there's a chance your child will never go outside and play in the neighborhood. And no one will ever know that a teenager even lives there.
Oh, because they're going in and out of the garage.
And if you let your child abuse screens, this is one of the reasons why everyone in my neighborhood knows I have kids. Because our kids play outside. Yeah. Our teenager watches our child play outside. Our kids walk their dogs, and we live on a court. And we hang out there. And we talk to our neighbors. And we and also another perk to our property here is we don't have any fences, which sucks because our dog runs away sometimes, which is why I was almost late for this podcast when my dang dog Robbie ran away. And talk about this. Guess what happened?
You found your
I
dog.
get a call and said, "Hey, Sean, it's from my neighbor Vivian. Hey, your dog just ran away." And I was like, "Okay, which way?" And so I run out the house and I text Jordan, say, "Jordan, I'm going to be late for the podcast. My dang dog ran away." And guess what happens? My neighbor, who is a very lovely lady named Vivian, she's giving me directions about where Robbie went. She even said I tried to tempt him back with meat to tempt him back. What a great neighbor, right?
Yeah.
Love your
that's
neighbor as
awesome.
yourself. She's a great neighbor. But then what happened was her husband, Michael, who's very, very quiet man. I don't think I've ever heard him say more than 10 years in the years we've been living here. She said, "Yeah, Michael will take you around the neighborhood in his car." And so I jumped in his car, in his Ford Explorer. He drove me around the neighborhood. We found the dog, man. I mean,
That's
this
cool.
is like, that's good. That's good. That's
No, it's
what we need
great,
more in
man.
America.
That's a community you want to be a part of.
That's
What we
that.
all want to be a part of, I think.
Mhm. I called my neighbor. We were out of power here for 4 days, Jordan. 4 days. We were living off a generator and power packs. I called the man across the street. His name is Tom, single man. No one else lives there. He's got like a 4-bedroom house, lives by himself. I called him. "Hey, Tom. Yeah. Hey, man. Just calling to say hi. How's it going? I haven't seen you since the power went out. How are you doing?" He's like, "Oh, I'm here in a hotel because I got to work from home and I have to have good Wi-Fi." He's like, "What's up?" And I said, "Nothing."
Just saying hi.
He's
It's
like,
like
"Oh,
you
okay.
bug
Is
like
there something you want help? Can I help you with
Oh
anything?"
my
I said, "No, man. I'm
gosh.
just thinking
Dude,
about you.
I've had so many conversations like that. I'm like, I just want to say
I'm
hey.
just thinking
And they're
about
like,
you.
this
Are
is
you
weird.
okay? Are you okay? Are
Right.
you doing okay? Do you need anything?" And
It was
I
like you were
just,
bugging him. Isn't
no,
that
no, he
weird?
got it. He's a super nice guy and he's a
Oh,
sweet
good.
man. And I
Okay,
think he was like,
good.
wow, he just got it. I was just calling to say hi and to check
Yeah,
in on
I
him as
love
a
calling
single
to say
man.
hi.
You
It
know,
is
we
weird if
need,
you're not used to it. It's like, why don't you text me? No, I want to hear your voice. I want to chat with you.
yeah. So, you know what? The Some of
Oh,
us
poor
have
guy.
large extended families, like I know they do in Brazil, and some of us they don't. And we don't have a large extended family here. What a lot of people do is they have, their family lives all around the country now. But that's not the way it
Hmm.
is in Brazil.
Or the
Tell us
world.
about Brazil.
Brazil, raising kids doesn't fall only on the mom and dad. It's very common. Several generations of family help out. We say the term "it takes a village," and this is literally proof. Grandparents, cousins, siblings, they all live together on different floors of the same building or maybe an adjoining home. It's convenient for the tradition of encouraging extended family to help bring in and bring up the children.
Hmm. Hmm.
That's not a lot happening here. Meanwhile, in Spain, kids stay up late. How about this? What time is your bedtime?
I was
Having
about
a
to ask
strict,
you.
regular bedtime is often seen as a smart parenting strategy for us,
This
right?
is pretty wild.
I was just talking about how in the beginning of the podcast, how I
Listen to
looked at my
this.
friend and they have a strict bedtime routine and their
Yep.
kid sleeps through the night. And I'm
Mhm.
like, I want to adopt that,
Right.
but
We
it
want
is strict.
strict. That's
I'm
how
not
some.
strict.
No, you ask 10 families, how do you handle bedtimes? You're going to get 10 different responses. Please tell us more about this because I think this is really interesting and I want to make a point on what they're doing here in Spain. Go for it.
In Spain, parents often won't tuck in little ones until 10 o'clock or later. That's because mothers and fathers find it important that even young kids enjoy the family's nightlife.
Isn't
I
that
have something to say
interesting?
too.
Isn't that a unique thing right there? Isn't that unique? Here in America, we are all about that bedtime, and we have research that shows us how kids need bedtimes. It makes me wonder, do they start school later in Spain then? What's your take on this?
Okay, so when I was visiting Portugal one time, that sounds like I'm this world traveler, but I was in
You are.
Portugal.
Yeah,
I
you
won a
are.
trip on
So,
The Price is Right, and they sent
yeah.
me to Portugal. It was awesome. Bob Barker
Dude,
was like,
Jordan
Jordan,
was
you have a
on the
trip
Price
to
is Right, everybody, and he
Portugal.
won. Hold on. Time
I won a
out.
trip to Portugal.
Time
No,
out.
we're gonna gloss past
No,
that.
can I please tell
Okay.
the story, please?
Yes,
Yes.
of course. Okay.
So Jordan, he's a very handsome man, and one of the reasons why he's so handsome is this guy tans up so good. So growing up in San Diego, I got this Irish pink skin, and I can tan up pretty good, but it takes time. Jordan's like he's like out in the sun, and so this genius, we weren't even living near each other. You took
A piece of
sunscreen.
paper.
Oh,
No, I
oh,
took a piece of paper and I cut into the piece of paper Bob's number one, and I pasted the piece of paper on
Yes.
my stomach,
On your stomach, Bob's number
and I
one.
baked.
And you baked. And where did you, in your house or go to the beach or pool?
No, I was at the beach. I was actually in Florida at the time with my mom on a work trip, and I sat in the sun for like 4 hours, and it baked into my skin, and I had a sunburn tattoo that said Bob's number one.
And then you went with your girlfriend at the time, Danny.
Yeah, and it's some college kids, and we stayed in line, and I showed them my belly because
You
I
pulled up the
didn't.
shirt, bro.
Most people have T-shirts. They get
Yeah, they
T-shirts, you know, and
do.
they'll get called up. Back in the
Yeah.
day, I was like, "Oh, you have a
You're
shirt?
so
We'll bring it."
dope.
I didn't have a shirt, and it was like
Did you
a couple
take your
days before,
shirt
so
all the way off or did you pull it
no,
up?
I just lifted it up.
And so it's an interview process. That's what it used
real
to be
quick.
back in the day. They would interview
Yeah.
you and they would make sure you're very charismatic and unique. And they would pick the best, most charismatic people. My brother-in-law, Brian Hamilton, got picked. And of course you got picked. And then you won a trip to Portugal. Okay.
I won a
So
trip to Portugal.
back to your Portugal
back to
story.
our podcast. So when I was in Portugal,
Bob's
which,
number
by the way,
one.
is right next to Spain, people didn't go out for like drinks and nightlife until like midnight. People were eating dinner at 10 o'clock at night.
Wow.
So I would show up at like 8 for dinner, try to go out at 10, be in bed by midnight. That's not the way. They've got siestas in France or in Spain and Portugal. So I'm wondering if that is part of this culture. We talk about staying up with the family's nightlife.
Yeah.
They take naps. They don't have to work a full day. There's like a period of day where everything's shut down because it's siesta time.
Wow. Yes, we've heard about this, but it's just so different. It's so different. Like, here's what I'm thinking about. I'm trying to stay up late with my teenagers because that's a teenager hack is like they like to stay up late. And so if your kids are 13 and above, do your best to try to stay up late to watch movies with them, hang out with them. But bro, it's hard for me, man. It's hard for me. And it's got to be hard for you because you work in the mornings, like you work in the evenings even. And so, but it kind of makes sense because what you see here from this article is like they want to cherish family time. And so they're incorporating the children into that, which is so different than American culture. Some of us, we just come home, we put our kids to bed pretty quickly, or they go to sports after school and then they go to bed, or they go sports school. I like what they're doing. I'm actually going to Google, tell us about France, and I'm going to type it into my phone. I'm going to Google what time does school start in Spain. Can you tell us about France?
Meanwhile, their neighbors in France, these kids, they don't interrupt their parents, which we've talked about that on the podcast, right? Kids who interrupt a lot. One of the tricks was to like teach them like, hey, while I'm talking as an adult, if you need me, you come and just put your arm on my shoulder and I'll know you need me. And when I'm done with my conversation, I will look at you and I will talk to you. Well, here, the little ones are famous for minding their own manners, right? From a young age, they're taught never to interrupt. And they basically, the parents lead by example. Patience is key. Instead of dropping everything to tend to their kids when they say, Mom, Dad, Americans often do that, yes, but children here must wait until mom or dad are done with their business first.
Yeah, that's the
how much do we all want that?
I'm going to read you a story that I read my daughter last night. But before I do, to wrap up our episode, I want to tell you what I found about Spain. Here, it says here that in Spain, school runs from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. with a 2-hour lunch break from 1 to 3.
2 hours. There's your siesta time.
They chill out. They relax. Also, what it's so cool is I would assume that they have so much more time for just play and free time. If you're talking 9 to 5, right? I'm just assuming that. And wow. One of the ways that Iceland, you could Google this. This is amazing. Iceland had a huge problem in the, I think, 90s with teenage alcoholism and pot smoking. And what did they do? All the adults in the whole country, they got together, the government got involved, and they said, we have to do better. We are like leading the world in teenage alcoholism and partying and drugs. And I think you can Google this. I think what they did is they made a law that the kids had to be involved in a curricular after school.
Extracurricular?
Yeah,
okay.
They had to do it by law. And they actually put
here,
pressure on parents to adopt this. And even like if your kids was caught drinking, or abusing drugs, they actually make parents like actually go to classes or do some type of counseling or something like that. And now they changed it. And now they have some of the healthiest teenagers in the whole world. So there's so much power in parenting and what you do and the culture you want to have.
At that time, the teenage drinking rate was 42% in the 1990s.
Wow.
42%.
That is so intense. Drinkers. So intense. Okay, so in my hands right now, Jordan, I have a little book. Have you heard of the book by Bob Goff? It's called Love Does.
No.
Okay, Bob Goff became a really famous author by some of the books that he's written. And he wrote, and him and his daughter got together and took this bestseller called Love Does. And his daughter, who's an elementary school teacher, her name is Lindsay Goff Viduich, they wrote a children's book called Love Does for Kids. And what I've been doing with my daughter is almost every night we read a little chapter out of this book. And it is a brilliant book. I would say 5 stars. And
Should I order this? What age group for kids should we do this? I'm gonna order this right now.
definitely, if you've got kids, I would say 12 and under, this book is for you.
Oh, I'm doing it.
And it takes, about 5 to 10 minutes to read a chapter out of the book. And they're little stories. There's 46 little stories. And I'm going to read you a little bit of the story, not the whole story, but I'm going to read you something that just really stood out to me. Are you ready for this?
Yeah.
I'm in chapter 41. I mean, Bob is such a brilliant storyteller. Oh, gosh, man. When my kids were growing up, we had a rule in our family. Okay, take a pause. As you listen to the story, as we wrap up this podcast, I want to empower you. And I want to tell you something true. You're the most powerful person in your family's life. You can create the culture of the home. If you want to create a culture of screen addiction, abusing screens, abusing alcohol, abusing work, then do it. And if you want to take from other cultures, if you want to make family meetings a part of your home culture, if you want to make patience a part of your home culture, if you want to make healthy foods a part of your home culture, if you want to make loving siblings a part of your home culture, if you want to make camping, if you want to make charity a part of your home culture, you can do that because you're the parent. When my kids were growing up, we had a rule in our family. Anytime the kids stood up for one of their siblings, the whole family would have a party. Thankfully, we got to have a lot of parties because our kids learned early on that we stand up for each other. Man, I'm getting shivers just reading this. Even though getting along with brothers and sisters or friends can be hard, I knew that if they stuck up for each other, they would be good friends for the rest of their lives. When my daughter Lindsay was in high school, she co-wrote the book. One of her friends passed away.
Oh,
it was a shock to everyone. Death is really sad and hard, and a hard thing to cope with. It makes God sad too. When you're grieving the loss of someone, you might feel a wave of emotions hit you out of nowhere, and you'll start to feel really sad. That's normal, but even knowing that doesn't make it easier to go through. As the family sat around the dinner table one night, we talked about how sad it was that Lindsay lost her friend. We were all feeling heavy-hearted for Lindsay and for her friend's family. As we talked, I turned to my boys and said, "Sons, Lindsay is going to be feeling really sad for a while, and it might hit her at different times. Your job is to protect your sister's heart. If she begins missing her friend a lot and she starts to cry, comfort her. If she looks sad and you think she needs a distraction, make one. If she needs someone to just sit and talk with her and be quiet, have a seat. As her family, we all get to take care of her. And do you know what my sons did? Of course you do. Because you would do the exact same things. My sons looked out for their sister during hard time. Sometimes all we can do is to walk through sadness with each other, not around it. God gave each of us so we wouldn't need to pass through the most difficult times. Nowadays, my kids are all grown up and they live in the same city. And you know what? They're best friends. The commitment they made as kids to be there for each other continues to this day.
Those are good words, man. That's a great book. How'd you find that book? That's amazing. I'm gonna buy that book right now.
I don't know. My wife found it. I just think that in a country of individualism, in a country of screens everywhere, I want to raise my family where we love each other, We love our neighbors. We love our siblings.
Mm-hmm.
And we surround ourselves with either neighbors or aunts and uncles, grandparents, godparents. And I don't want to do this thing alone. I don't want to do it alone. And I'm thankful for you. I'm thankful for my neighbor, Tom, and Vivian and Michael. And I'm thankful for the people that I'm going through life with that are there for my kids, and for me. How about you, Jordan?
You know what I'm thankful for? I'm thankful that we live in a country that has all those things you just listed.
Oh, yes.
But the
Oh, my
reality
gosh.
is you're not going to hear about it.
Wow.
Society's not going to tell you about it.
My
You're going to hear
gosh.
everything else. The reality is, Sean, we could be talking to ourselves in a mirror and no one could be listening because there is a lot of people out there who already know this. And I'm thankful for all of those people who are living this way. I know your voice isn't as strong as the other side because it's so negative,
So
the other
good.
side, but there is some great parents out there, and I'm
My
thankful for all
gosh.
the ones that are doing just that.
I'm going again. I'm thankful for Black
Okay.
families. I'm thankful for Latino countries. I'm thankful for Hebrew and for Arabic and for Persian families. I'm thankful for Australian families. I'm thankful for Brazil and Spain and French, and for this country where we have all these cultures coming together. We can take the best. And I'm thankful for you for listening to this podcast.